Metroid Prime 4 was announced in June of 2017 during a Nintendo Direct. This announcement came after a decade without a new entry in the Metroid Prime franchise, and to say the least, people went wild. We wouldn't get any news on the game though until January of 2019, when Nintendo announced that development had been entirely reset, and the game was handed over to Retro Studios, who were the original developers of the Metroid Prime franchise. On June of 2024, an entire 7 years after the original announcement, we finally got our first look at Metroid Prime 4, now titled Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Finally, after 8 years, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond was released on December 4th of 2025, and it was good? Decent? Okay? I had waited more than 8.5 years for this game, and I could not help but feel slightly disappointed. Even looking at some of the critic reviews, Metroid Prime 4 earned itself a score of 78, which is not a bad score by any means, but it lacks in comparison to its predecessors, which all had scores of 90 and above. Now, I'd like to delve into some of the issues I had with the game. First of all, I'd like to start by clarifying that Prime 4 is not a bad game or a poorly made one. However, I do not believe that it does justice to the Prime name. My main problem with this game is the areas. There are 5 main areas in Prime 4 through which you explore, backtrack, gain new upgrades, etc. Your usual Metroid business. These 5 areas are Fury Green, Volt Forge, Ice-Belt, Flare Pool, and the Great Mines. Now, to start off, these areas are not directly connected in any way, shape, or form, and I hate that. They are strictly separated and found basically in each corner of Soul Valley, which is a whole nother problem of its own. But getting back on track, in the previous games, specifically Prime 1 and 2, each area was connected in such a way that by the end of the game you could get from any one area to any other area. And I really enjoyed that, as it made backtracking fun, and it allowed you to find new ways to get to new places, or even shortcuts back to previous areas utilizing your new upgrades. However, in Prime 4, that entire aspect of gameplay and exploration is just gone due to the way the world is structured. I view the world of Prime 4 to be almost more Zelda-like than Metroid-like, with each area being separate from each other and being contained to their own little region, very much in the same fashion as Breath of the Wild, for example. Now, maybe with the developers not having to worry about the interconnectedness of each area and how they all work together in relation to the world, maybe without having to worry about that, they were able to really thoroughly develop each area and make them interesting and unique to explore. That is what I wish I could say, but unfortunately, every single one of these areas is very linear with not many secrets to find. For example, take this. This is a map of Fury Green. Now compare it with the map of the Chozo Ruins. These are both the first area in each game, but one of these looks a lot more interesting to explore, and it's not Fury Green. I mean, come on, when you put them side by side like that, it feels like they didn't even try to make Fury Green interesting. You're basically walking in a straight line for most of it. Also, real quick, what's up with the name Fury Green? Actually, what's up with most of the names in this game? Flare Pool? Ice Belt? The Great Mines? You couldn't come up with something cooler? What happened to all the cool names like Phendrana Drifts, or Torvis Bog, or the Sanctuary Fortress? That's just a nitpick of mine though. Let's get back to the topic at hand. So as I was saying, the areas in this game are very linear. Another example of this being the Volt Forge, which is made up of like 3 or 4 towers, I don't really remember at this point, but they all play into the same loop of going down an elevator, then you walk into a room where you do a puzzle or you fight some enemies, then you walk into another elevator that takes you to another room where you fight some enemies or do a puzzle, and then you walk into another elevator. Do you see what I mean? The only exception to this is the one where you go do the whole motorcycle tutorial. But in consequence, this makes it a slog to get through when you're backtracking, but there is a shortcut, that alleviates that a little at least. Also, just in general, the whole game is very linear. There are little to no chances to do things out of order, and the biggest defense in my eyes happens right after Volt Forge, like the game straight up slapped me across the face. So you exit Volforge, and then Miles calls you on the radio, and he's like, "Hey, you have two areas available to you: the ice belt and the flare pool. So you can go ahead and tackle it whatever way you want." His words, by the way. So I think to myself, well, great, maybe this will add some replay value, because it'll let you do things in a different order. So I head over to Ice Belt, and Miles calls me on the radio again, and he says what is basically, "Nah, I was just kidding. You have to go to Flare Pool actually, whether you want to or not, and then you can go to Ice Belt."
What? What the fuck?
Why even give the player the illusion of choice at that point? Overall, that's my biggest problem with Prime 4. It's just the linearity of the game and the way the world is structured. There's other problems too, like the story not being very good or memorable, but then again, I've never played Metroid for the story, and I doubt you have either. The music isn't very memorable at all, save for a couple tracks here and there, but even those don't stand out as well compared to the previous games. Metroid Prime 4 had a lot of potential to be the Breath of the Wild moment of the Metroid franchise, if you will, in which it really should have pushed the series forward, but ultimately, it actually went backwards in some aspects. I hope there is a Metroid Prime 5 at some point, but I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo stuck to 2D Metroid for the time being. For now though, this has been L.B.O.E. Thank you for listening, and see you later.